All right. What are we talking about today? We're talking about speeches, my friends. How are you going to get this language done? I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to write a speech. I've done it before. A monologue, a speech. I'm dead serious. You don't have to deliver it to anybody. You don't have to be like these politicians. Stop asking us about the Epstein files. We're gaslighting you. There's nothing that we're completely normal. We are not weird. You're weird. We don't have to do that. Okay? You don't have to do all that. The reason that we want to build or memorize a speech is because it will have an aim, a structure, a place with which you will know you have a complete competence around. And doing this exercise is going to blow your mind for the way that it gives you fluidity in your ability to speak. Let's go. The first step in this process is for you to understand what you are going to be talking about. You need a subject. You need a broad enough subject that you're going to have things that are going to come out underneath it. Little ideas. That's what you want to do. You want to have layers to this. Don't pick something that you're not really interested in, obviously. It doesn't matter actually if this is related to your overall language goal. The point here is for you to stress fluidity, understand the grammar, structure, getting all that stuff into your head and knowing exactly how to say it and knowing that you're saying it well. All right. So you're going to be, by the end of this, able to speak this entire speech, right? It doesn't have to be long, once again. We're not looking for you to deliver an entire hour speech at the UN. No. All right. When we start this, we're looking at you being able to speak for 30 seconds to a minute, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I guarantee you it is if you're speaking at this pace. Okay. And that is the goal. Regardless of your level, we want to get you to speak at this pace, almost native level, for 30 seconds to a minute. Okay. Longer for some of you guys that are at a higher level, of course, but that's the first and original goal. So let's choose football, soccer first. For those of you that know what else I do outside of this, you'll understand why I can speak a whole lot around this subject. And now once we've chosen that subject, it's exactly matched up to artificial immersion. So we need to understand the language method as well because it pairs up perfectly, which is why this works. All right. In our language learning method, artificial immersion, the first idea is for you to be able to communicate. Most of you guys who are learning languages have never gotten to that point where you are able to communicate. You can maybe say something here or there, and then whatever comes back, or your chance, you have a block, all right, or you don't know what's said back to you. That's not communication. We want you to be able to float in the water. It's okay. Can't quite swim yet, but you're not gonna die. You are not going to drown. And I know that's exactly how you feel when you feel like you failed in language learning, is that you cannot float in a conversation. It just doesn't work, all right? And so at the very beginning of this can be a subject that you know a whole lot about or you don't. Just make sure that it's a vast, big subject. So we choose football, all right? And underneath that, we've got teams, how to play, the fans, different countries, different cultures, different leagues, all this stuff. So now I know I've got plenty of stuff that I can pick and choose from. All right, now that we have our subject, we talked about what we need, these tentacles, these things coming off. Think of this as a framework, the skeleton. This is the part where you're gonna start building that speech to have an idea. And we'll get to the very end because you do have to have an aim, but we'll talk about that in the next step. So when we're building out this framework, you probably have, let's choose just 3 things that are really important to you about this, all right? And they need to be in some form of, let's say, a chronological order. Think of that you are trying to explain something. That's what a speech is trying to do, is trying to convey information. What that information is exactly and what you're trying to explain, we're gonna talk about later. Right now, let's build that framework so we can start to understand where we're going. All right. So if I've chosen football and I want to tell you first how to play, what that game is. Second, all right, we're going to tell you about this team, my favorite team. And third, we're going to tell you about their greatest win. All right. I have a framework. Boom, 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 boom. This is nothing ridiculous. It's a simple logical process that you need to have and understand. But when this pertains to language learning, this is going to help us tremendously. All right. Because we just need to know these key terms, which is what we're going to have. And so when you're building a speech for yourself, you're going to base this off of terms, phrases, and key words. All right. And so because of football, we're going to know that ball, okay, goal, field, whatever, teammate, you're going to have these words. All right. And so these words you're going to have to incorporate. So that's the beautiful thing about doing this speech, all right? It's it's a way different than the traditional method, in which case they would just give you that list and have you memorize this based off of God knows what, or Duolingo, which, all right? I just need to remind everybody that Duolingo, it's stupid. Now, if we have 3 sections, having about 10 to 15 words per section is going to be enough, all right? So at the end of the day, the most amount of new or key words you have in this entire speech is gonna be about 45. And that's pretty good to have a complete and total understanding, right, of these definitions of these words, of how they work in context, all right? And so now that you've chosen those 10, you need to string together stuff. And so you're going to actually, if you can, of course, write. You don't have to write anything down. Of course, I would suggest it's a little bit easier if you do write down those 10 words and you do write down those sentences and you do write down the speech as you're coming up with it, right? And so you don't have to worry in your first edition, this rough draft edition about being grammatically correct and doing all that stuff. When you're writing it down, all right, you don't. You write that part down. Football is a game with 22 players, 11 players on one team, 11 players on the other team. They are trying to score goals on a field, right? They have teammates. Now you are going to be the one that's creating these sentences. You're going to get them corrected later, right after, okay? You can use, obviously, we have many things that you can use. A native speaker would be the best way. If you have someone that you can sit with and say like, no, that you don't say it like that. This is how you say it. Or ChatGPT and all the rest of them. Of course, you know, they make mistakes here or there, but for the most part, right, on general grammatic structure, it should be okay. All right. I'm assuming that you guys have at least a base, at least some form of a base in this language. It's not your day one, right? Trying to prepare a speech on day one is a little bit tough, but after a few weeks, this is not a problem, especially if you're following our method you'll have a base, a vocab that will allow you to do something like this. Once I've written my 10 phrases, my 10 words in the sentences that have kind of strung them together, it's not going to be great, guys. It is going to be. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have that, you have your skeleton, you have your framework, and that's from there, we're going to go talk about the final point. Now, it's funny because normally what you should do is start from the end. Usually you want to know what it is that I want to talk. But the reason that I formed it like this, the reason I do it like this is because your brain at the beginning of language learning has a lot of craziness. You kind of want to delve and dabble into all this stuff, right? And so you want to have an aim. You want to have a direction, just a tunnel. You want to have a tunnel that you're going down, but you don't want to be so fixed that you don't want to talk about anything else, right? Because language doesn't work like that. You go off and do different things and say different things, and you're going to meet different words and stuff like this. And so now, only after you've taken all that stuff that you've kind of decided, like, I'm going to play with this. These are my tools, right? Now I want you to go and say, all right, what can I convey with those 3 things that I've put across? It's trippy, I know. It's not normally how you would form a speech, but the reason that you're doing this isn't to convey something to the UN. You are trying to learn a language, all right? So just follow me with this. It's taken from all sorts of different sources, and I know that it works. So let's say at the end of this, I want to convey to you that this is the best sport in the world. I'm trying to tell you my love, my passion for this game, and I'm going to explain it using all these words and this framework that I have. Okay, these teams, this culture, this league, this whatever. Right? I've got that, and that's now what I'm trying to do, and I have to do that with the form that I've made. All right, I've already made some sentences. I've already got some stuff. So now, after you've corrected all this stuff, you're going to go back and you're going to look at this and you're going to see, okay, now I'm going to start throwing out. You are going to throw stuff away. You're going to throw certain sentences away. You're going to get yourself to a refined nature that you can say, all right, now I've got about a minute. And I'm telling you, put a minute on the clock for a language that you're not yet comfortable speaking in. And you will see that 1 minute to 2 minutes to 5 minutes is going to be a forever. It's forever. All right. And so don't get crazy thinking that you need 10 minutes, 20 minutes of this stuff. This is why people fail. People are trying to do too much, too fast at the beginning, which is just a characteristic of our entire society, which wants everything fast now, right? And to learn the language before you've even started studying the language, right? We don't want that. We want this to be deep, profound understanding of a subject. And so that's why now you're getting these phrases. You got this giant little list of stuff that you wrote out and it's kind of jumbled around. You don't really have any stuff. Now you want to go back and now refine. This sentence makes sense to try and say what I'm saying. These things make sense. This phrase I'm going to throw out some words. 10, you may be left with not with a whole bunch. You might be left with just 20 phrases for your minute, 20 of the words. And those are the ones that stick. Those of you that are more ambitious are going to go for the 2-3 minutes. And you're going to try and fit all those 45, right? Or 30, whatever it is that you had for your 3 sections. You're going to go fit all those in. And you can do that, right? And so know yourself. know what you would stick to, know what you can do. If you need to chunk this down a little bit, if you're at the intermediate stage, then you better be shooting for the top, okay? Because you're not gonna get to the advanced stage by doing it kind of soft like this. Each stage needs and requires a different level of energy to get past it, all right? The initial phase, you guys are free to do a whole lot. You can build it up slowly if you want, or you can put it in. But if you reach the intermediate stage, you want to get to advanced, you have to put it in. You're gonna have to do weird stuff like this, all right? Now, I want to talk about one other thing, which is memorizing a speech as well, which is also a tremendous exercise and completely different, right? The reason I explained that first one is because when you do it and it comes from you, you tend to retain this information better. At least that's what the research says. In my experience, that does seem to be the case. If I hand you this list and say that this is Plutarch's freaking speech from before in Latin, and you're just like, okay, like, I don't care. I don't care, bro, you know? And so it's different when it comes from you. However, there's still something to be said because it's a different exercise. I would suggest for both people or for most people to do both, because it's a different exercise. One is gonna stretch you in a weird way. It has a different level of concentration. If you've ever tried to memorize, and now I'm not saying to memorize in a rote way, we can talk about how you can memorize it. I'm just gonna explain this. Within our community, I am explaining obviously both sides, you know, but just for the sake of this video today, to not be incredibly long, which is already long, I'm not gonna get into that. Just know that you can take a speech, make it small, once again, that you're gonna be talking for about 1 minute to 2, max 3, because it requires a lot of effort and energy, right? To get all this down and then to be able to recite it. Because what you're gonna be working on is pronunciation, understanding the grammar. You're going to pick up on some of these patterns. This is the thing that happens, okay? This is why memorization in this way works. Where it doesn't work and where you've seen me talk about how much I hate it is when you're just taking a flashcard and memorizing, this is the cat, okay, gato, and then you go like this and you just keep going. Oh, yeah. There's no pegs, there's no nothing, my brain, it won't stick. Memorizing a full speech, when you now go to meet these words, when you're reading, when you're watching something, those patterns will click. It's going to click in your head, all right? And then you'll start to see the benefit of doing something like this, as well as, like I said, you being able to speak fluidly, even if it's the only thing you can say fluidly in a language, starts to train your brain. It needs to, your brain gets into